Grace and peace to you. I'm Diane, pastor of the Bellbrook Presbyterian Church, and this sermon short is on Exodus 32, verses 1 through 12. When we get to this passage in the book of Exodus, we've come quite a ways from the time of the Israelites' slavery in Egypt. God has used Moses and Aaron to confront Pharaoh, who has enslaved and oppressed the Israelite people. And God has set the people free. Out in the wilderness where the people now wander, God has fed them with quail and manna, and he has quenched their thirst with water there, water from the ground. God has been with them. God has been faithful to them. God has been liberating and life-giving and nourishing and thirst-quenching. And yet, the people of Israel do not seem to know who God is. When we come to the 32nd chapter of Exodus, we find that Moses has been away from the people for some time, up on a mountain, as he often has done, speaking with God. In these encounters that Moses has, he has returned to the people in previous times with commandments and laws and instructions from the Almighty about who God is and about how God expects God's people to act as his people. Those commandments and instructions have included that they are not to make false idols, that they are not to make anything of gold and worship it, that they are to worship nothing over and above God Almighty. These things have not been unclear or unspoken. The people know what God said. And yet on this particular occasion, when Moses goes to the mountaintop, he's delayed, or at least the people think he is delayed. And in his absence, they start to think things a little different from what God has said. Moses has been kind of this interface between the people and God, and without him, without some physical something that has represented God for them in their midst, in their presence, they begin to wonder if God is there, if God is still with them, still leading them out, still feeding them, still nourishing them. And in that moment when that question arises about the presence of God and the identity of God, about the space that Moses has left there, they decide to fill it. They decide to make a false idol out of the gold that they gather from amongst themselves, and they create a golden calf and they worship it. It is a problem. It's a problem that the people of God have violated the instructions that they just received from God not too many verses earlier about not worshiping false idols, about not constructing idols of gold and bowing down to them. It's exactly what they're doing here. But there's an even bigger problem, and that is they clearly have no idea who God truly is. Even having been led out of oppression and slavery, even having been fed each and every single day, even having seen water come from rocks to quench their thirst, having experienced this liberating and life-giving, thirst-quenching God who has journeyed with them, they've tried to reduce him or replace him or define him with something of their own making. It's a huge problem. Would you recognize God? I invite you to join us this Sunday as we read this story. It is a powerful story full of so much Join us in the sanctuary in person for worship at 8:30 or 10 o'clock in the morning, or join us online at bellbrookpc.org and worship with us there. We'll consider this passage, consider the actions of the people, the instructions that God gave, and what it means when we think we can take something of our own concept, of our own hand, and make it our God. May the grace and peace of Jesus Christ be with you this day, and may you have eyes to see and ears to hear the one and true God that is among us, liberating and nourishing and quenching our thirst this day.